We're on chapter 9 or chapter 43 of the big book, Life and Love in the Petri Dish. So our intention, as always, is just to come together and hold compassionate, loving space for one another. So there's no criticism or judgment. We don't put each other down. We really do our best to lift each other up and to understand one another. Why don't we go around and do a quick check-in and see what everybody thought. Bojana, you want to start?
What chapter are we on?
43 in the big book.
And what in the little book?
Chapter 9.
9?
Yes.
I'm with you then.
Oh, 9 is book number 2.
Book 2, number 9.
Perfect. Oh, perfect. Yes.
That's good.
Okay,
We've been taking a while to go through the chapters 7 and 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Bojana?
So yeah, we had a little bit of a busy week here, so I have to admit that I haven't finished the last 3 pages, but nevertheless, I listened to it a couple of times, so I'm familiar with the work in this chapter, and I find it very helpful in kind of like everyday life. You can apply a lot of the physics or science that Tom discussed in this chapter, so that was very beneficial. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about you, Daniel?
I don't know, I'm kind of mixed about this one. It's I don't know. It was really hard to comment on this one because I read it, but at the same time I had some difficulty understanding it as well. So I'm glad I'm here today, just trying to get a better perspective of the whole thing. So yeah.
Sylvia?
Yeah, I think I felt like Daniel. There are parts of it that I was like, oh, we're going to talk about, religion. Oh, I didn't even have this question. So there's like part of it I was like, okay. And then I could go through. And then there are bits of it that I was like, I actually don't understand what he's trying to say here. I can't wait to talk to people. And then bits of it that were like, oh, this is profound. I have to remember, like, I want to put this on a postcard on the wall. So it was very mixed for me, which usually the chapters don't feel that way to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. How about you, Donna?
So I have to review it with you guys. So I'm going to be reading while you're talking, and that'll remind me what we're doing.
Okay, great. And then Dean, hi Dean, we're just doing a check-in right now. Just sharing what your thoughts were, your overall thoughts on the chapters. So chapter 9 in the book 2 or chapter 43 in the big book. Did you get a chance to read it?
Oh, you're on mute, Dean. Oh, we still can't hear you.
He's on mute.
You gotta turn your mic up.
It's like pantomime.
Good, Dean.
Tell him what he used to do.
Thank you. Yes, I hear you. Yeah.
1 second. Oh, okay.
Dean.
Okay, well, you want us to go and then come back to you?
Circle around.
Okay, okay, baby, what did you think?
I didn't get a chance to finish it, guys, so I'm just intrigued in what everyone has to say. Yeah, I'm just in the middle of my dissertation for my master's, so.
Oh,
yeah.
That's wonderful.
Slacker.
Oh.
I'm trying to get to everything, so I think I got about 3 or 4 more pages left, but.
No, I'm just messing with you. Of course, a dissertation sounds like a lot.
It is, definitely.
Yeah, I also didn't finish. I was like,
Slacker.
but like Daniel, we've been through this before, so I still have some of the highlights from last time we read it. So I'm just gonna rely on that. Dean, are you with us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay.
Dude.
Here I am.
Okay. Were you able to read the chapter?
Oh, yes. So, all I saw was chapter 9. I didn't know what that meant in the big book, and I've covered through that area, so it was kind of a coin toss for me whether or not I'd already read it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that ends up being which section?
43 in the big book.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Okay, that's all right. You can follow along with this. That's awesome. So
Cool. Thanks, guys.
yeah, it starts for us in the small book on page 129. Bojana, what page is it on in the big book?
That'll be page 379.
379. Okay, cool.
79.
So on the first page, did anything stand out for anybody on the first page?
Didn't stand.
Let's see.
What stood out for me was it was interesting. Just right now, I'm trying to find that spot, and I turned exactly to section 43, but it was in book 3, right? And then somebody said the page number, and I turned exactly to that page number.
That's crazy.
Too.
PK.
You were in the flow.
Yeah, out of a book that big, so that's interesting.
Go buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, almost helped me along, so I guess I'm right where I need to be. And I'll
There
go
you
buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've got nothing on page 1.
Do you got anything, Vanessa?
Yeah, I had the last paragraph, first sentence, where he says, to avoid the pain of not knowing, people habitually extrapolate what they know and are familiar with to the unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just, he talks a lot about beliefs. We make up a belief that we do know when in fact we don't know, and it's better to just stay open-minded and, as he says, skeptical, because then we open ourselves up to the possibility of learning. But if we're already like, oh, I know this, and then we can't learn anything new, right? So just, like he always says, to live gracefully with uncertainty, with not knowing. Just be okay with that.
Right. That's the hard part. Trying to be okay with what you don't know and just accept that instead of coloring it over from what you do know, and kind of knowing in the back of your mind that might be vague and incorrect, but at least it's what you know. So you're going to go with the devil you do rather than the one you don't.
It's like I tell my students, you have to construct knowledge. You have to know something, so you start constructing it. Okay, this is that is that. And then once you have some basic knowledge, even though it's just basic knowledge, when you start becoming aware or awake, you then begin to deconstruct that. So that's, I think that's what he meant by the pseudo knowledge. You realize, okay, yeah, I held that belief, I thought that thing, but now that I'm mature, I have more information, I need to change that.
How many times do we admit that we don't know?
I admit it a lot.
Yeah, I do too, but I think there's a lot of people that don't, right?
I'm a teacher, so we have to say it a lot.
Definitely, I agree.
Do you think that's ego-based? Can't admitting that you don't know?
I think so.
Society pushing too, because if you apologize for something, you take responsibility, which nowadays that might even mean you get sued. So it becomes like a habitual thing, what I've seen.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to admit fault or apologize, God forbid.
Yeah, it's a fine line too. I recognize in my own personal life, I found at one point saying often like, yeah, I don't know. And then I was like, I gotta stop telling myself that, because I need to know the direction that my life is headed in. So I then have changed it to, no, I do know what I feel is right for me. I'm open to the possibility of learning something else, but just to help myself to feel more powerful with my own self-worth, really, rather than just being so physical and being like, I don't know. What's that?
Rather than being so what?
Yeah, rather than being so kind of wishy-washy and not really having direction. Because I at one point I found myself, I was saying that a lot. I was just like, I don't know. And then when I changed it, now I'm like, no, I do know. This is how it is for me at this moment, but I'm open to other possibilities. when I made that change, I started recognizing it in others' language so often, where I would hear them saying, I don't know, I don't know. But you can't point it out to someone else, right? You need to just recognize it.
Right. Yeah. And accept and allow others to make mistakes and do the wrong thing, or what you perceive to be the wrong thing, or in a lot of cases, what's obviously the wrong path, choice, mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I want to correct it. Like, oh, it's so much easier if you go down this way, or if you use this tool, or this method, or whatever.
Yeah. Or somebody who's like smoking pot all the time or drinking all the time. It's so much easier if you just stop drinking all the time, But you can't just tell somebody that. They have to come to that understanding on their own, right?
Right.
Yeah, I like that quote. The more I know how little I know.
Right, right.
Yes.
On page 130, I don't know if this captures that, but, and I don't know what page it would be in the big book, it's just the next page. Second paragraph at the end. Ritual, dogma, closed-mindedness, hate, and violence, the historical trappings of religion or fill in the blank at the common level can appeal only to the short-sighted, feel good, feel superior, feel saved needs of ego. So Daniel, that was talking about the ego.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times that closed-mindedness or the dogma is, no, I'm right and I know it. I'm right and you're not.
Yeah.
That kind of inability to listen to someone else. And I think that's what Tom tells us in the beginning of the book. He says, please suspend beliefs, dogmas, and religion and just hear what I have to say. And so I think when you do that, you can't feel superior or hate or whatever, because you're that, okay, I'll suspend what I believe now, but I'm open to what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what he's getting at. I'm about to tell you lots and lots of things that might seem unbelievable or might seem different than what you've traditionally been taught. And to put your fear aside, put your ego aside, and then let's take this trip. So I think he's given us a nice foundation to kind of suspend your belief and follow along. Assimilate it later.
Right.
My friend Ellen, that I refer back to a lot, she always had this, mental imagery of a shelf. So as she's collecting data and thinking about things would happen and she'd be like, not quite sure what to do with that. And it's sort of feeling like, I don't know. It was like, maybe that will be useful later. And she would put it on mentally put it on the shelf. And she used to say that, sometimes it's just not time to know. And
Right.
so it's not, I don't know. It's that actually it's not time to know. I have to take the next step. And the next step may not involve this piece of knowledge, or it may not involve clarity about this particular issue, So, like if I'd be like, I don't know if I should do this or should do this. And she's like, you don't have to know yet. You just have to know what the next step is. And the next step might be do more research. And it might be go talk to people. It might be explore something. Mm-hmm. It might be wait and sit and, for more clarity. But that shelf, I love that shelf idea because we have so much we're trying to process. Mm-hmm. And I know I can't process all of it. And some of it, when I go through it, I know just what to do with it. And other stuff, I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. So then it goes on the shelf and then something else will hit. And then later on, I might be, there's that thing on the shelf. Now that makes sense to me. Now the timing is right for me to absorb that or utilize it or whatever.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Good analogy, yeah.
How is your friend?
I don't know. She's kind of dropped out of circulation. So okay. I don't know who she is.
What about over on the next page, 131? Anything there?
The thing that struck me was the on the second to the last paragraph, that first line. And I think he says this is about other people, but he says something about ourselves as too. We know others sentient entities by the nature of their being, not the structure or mechanics of their being. Because Yeah. I think in the book we think a lot about ourselves, and he says later how we feel is who we are, and this sort of feels a little bit like that same thing. So I really like that.
The first paragraph there, the last sentence where he says, low quality consciousness is by nature easily manipulated. I just like that because then it helps me to take responsibility for myself not to be a low quality consciousness, so I can't be manipulated by others. Because he's often talked about how, if you have fear, people can use that as a handle to basically, you're their hand puppet now. That fear, they just basically can pull at those fear strings or push at those fear buttons, and then you're reactive to it. Whereas if you don't have the fear, they can push buttons, but no buttons are there, so you're not reactive. You're instead responding from this powerful place of love. Anything else on that page? Okay, moving over to 132. Or for Vijana, you guys 182? Or
382?
382.
382.
Anything there?
Well, I think at the top of the page where he's talking about being fearless and being foolhardy don't always travel together. So I get this question a lot about you're being open to something, but not being totally open to everything. And I think it goes back to Sylvia's shelves. Like, okay, I'm fearless. I'm going to go ahead and be open about this, and you're going to tell me something. Well, oh, I don't like that. I'm putting that up on the shelf. You're asking me to jump off a cliff. Oh, that doesn't seem right. So competition and survival are non-issues. I actually like that coming from a competitive background, that this isn't a competition. This isn't about being fearless and stupid. You still bring your common sense into it. If you don't like what you're hearing, put it on the shelf. I guess that just adds to what you said, Sylvia.
Right.
Being vulnerable and fearful, that kind of the duality between, being fearless, but not foolhardy. I like that. That really was a good one for me. That duality. And apparently my dog also liked that.
Yep. Right on.
Yeah, I guess this page really he's talking about PMR as it's a trainer for evolution, consciousness evolution, right? And how at first we started with just NPMR and there was no tight rule set. It was very loose, and so you could get away with anything basically there. And there were no consequences for your choices. And so now we decided to create PMR, this physical matter reality, a tighter rule set, where there's definitely, you eat McDonald's every day, you're going to have consequences, right?
Right.
Yeah, if you treat people poorly, you're going to have consequences. You won't have any friends, So there's always consequences, and because of these consequences, it helps us to learn what choices to make and what choices not to make. And so it's like the fast track for consciousness evolution and all.
So this is where the free will comes into play.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where you get immediate results from action, reaction. You cut a 2x4, well, that 2x4 is cut in half. It's not sorta, it's kinda, it's not smoky and vague, it's two boards now. A physical reality.
And you can't put it back together way.
Yeah.
Yeah, on page 133 at the top there, second sentence, he says, the process of interaction needed to be irreversible. Once choices are made and action is taken, there's no way to take it back. Right?
Yeah, what Daniel was just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the second sentence, last paragraph, or second paragraph, last sentence on that same page, he says, think of space-time as a virtual reality trainer that helps individuated consciousness units learn how to more effectively organize and structure their energy. So it's basically an opportunity for us to actualize our potential, to actualize our growth potential, as he puts it.
Yeah, interesting.
And I like how in the next paragraph he goes, because a huge number of small quizzes versus a few big inconclusive tests produce a better, more consistent evaluation. I like that because it helps me to pay attention to every choice that I make, right? It's not about just the big challenges. Oftentimes it takes this really big thing in our life for us to really get it. But if we can learn to get it based on all the everyday choices we have, we don't have to come across these big, huge challenges that come and slap us in the face. You know?
Yeah, that's the bit I underlined too. I agree. That's like a really good reminder.
Yeah. Every day, every moment is a miracle, is an opportunity for us to make a choice if we so wish to see it that way.
Yeah.
Right. It's good. Yeah. Yeah.
And also to practice and to actually become what our intentions are. You know, it's great to get it, but then you have to actually be it. And by I think that process of every choice is becoming. It's how we become things, is by making these choices.
And feeling it.
Yeah.
The feedback loop that Dean talked about. So open, you make this choice, you get immediate feedback. I like that.
Right.
Oops, you didn't do that.
Yeah, I like what you read, Vanessa, the way Tom's got that worded about effectively organize and structure their energy. It's an interesting thought in a metaphysical way. You know, we were talking about chakras a month ago or whatever it's been. You know, so you can think about your energy, you know, any way you want, virtual reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, inflow and outflow and consequences.
I like the very last paragraph too on that page where he goes, to facilitate self-improvement, each individuated consciousness would need to cut through the layers of convoluted intellectual assessment, opinions, image, and ego to get to the truth of a buried intent. Something was needed that allows individuals to see and feel their consciousness quality directly reflected in their actions. And so, you know, whatever is happening in our life is a direct result of our actions, of what's happened, of what choices we've been making. And
can you say that again? You said whatever, what?
Yeah, whatever is happening in our life is a direct result of the choices that we've making that have brought us to this particular moment in time. Right?
And the choices are the result of the intent.
Yeah, exactly. Of what intent do we have? Is our intent to just wander around aimlessly? Do we not have an intent? Or is our intent to grow up? I think he talks about later in the chapter too that it's understanding the purpose helps you to formulate this powerful intent. But if you don't know your purpose, then how can you really have an intent?
Understanding the bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to 134. Sorry, Donna, were you saying something? Your volume went down, Donna. I'm not... Oh, now I can't
hear you at all.
Oh, there you go.
I was just saying that effective consciousness evolution needed a truth device. So you can, you need something, you needed something, again, I think it's a feedback. You needed something was needed to allow individuals to see and feel their consciousness quality directly reflected by their actions. Effective consciousness evolution needed a truth device. or a quality meter. And I think that's really good. I think that's what we do for each other. So I'm sitting here, I'm reading this, and I'm evolving my consciousness, but I need feedback. And so when I say something, you guys go,
We lost you again.
or you think, what is she saying?
No,
Your volume's kind of low, Donna.
it's
Cutting in and out, yeah.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you now.
Can't hear you. Oh, yeah. We heard you say the word better, but just not the other stuff.
Okay, 1, 2,
There
3.
you go.
Woo!
Yeah, you're good.
I have a new microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on the next page for me, 134, the 1, 2, 3, fourth full paragraph down, it says, this, what you feel reflects what you are, internal quality meter, is the mother of all biofeedback devices. That love and joy do not dominate our feelings most of the time is both normal and not a good sign. Love, joy, peace, compassion, humility, and balance are the dominant expressions and feelings of a high quality consciousness.
Nice.
What you and I feel most of the time is probably more representative of a high entropy consciousness. So your feelings always reflect the real you with perfect accuracy. If you feel anger, negativity, inadequacy, or anxiety, that's a reflection of how you are and what you are on the inside, not how other people make you feel.
Yes. I have that all highlighted.
Super key, yeah.
It's
Yeah, I remember when we were reading it, Bobby, you pointed out something about that.
Yeah, what I highlighted was actually at the top, and it said, and obviously, my interpretation is that he's actually talking about us as physical beings in this avatar that we had. And he goes, "What a great feedback learning tool this would be! Can you imagine something that would accurately grade the quality of every thought we had and action we take, as well as maintain or running some of the results? An entity whose accumulated experience quality represents a large collection of good quality intentions would naturally create a loving and joyous existence. In contrast, one that represented an accumulation of entropy increasing ego-driven intentions would automatically create stressful, miserable, unhappy existence." So it echoes what you were saying below, but then I started highlighting. I just have square brackets. I stopped highlighting words. It's just like, what the hell, man? I don't know. I just put a big big line through everything. So I started. I square bracketed the bottom right below the paragraph that you just read, and it really dictates about how you're really in control of how you're feeling, and and it says that jerk really makes me mad. Well, actually, he does not. You cannot blame others for creating your emotions. You must take 100% of the responsibility of whatever you do, feel, and are. And then he obviously supports that with context above in the next paragraph, in the previous paragraph, right? So, yeah, and essentially that's where I stopped. And I'm like, no, I got to catch up. So.
Yeah, but it's tricky because I don't know about you. I sort of feel like I intellectually believe this. But in the moment when someone is really pissing you off, it's really hard to, I mean, I can intellectually tell myself and really, really, truly believe it. But that doesn't mean that I don't sometimes get reactive and think, God, if only there weren't people like that in the world, like it'd be such a better place, especially to, when I'm working with under-resourced kids and like racism, stuff like, I mean, really hard stuff. It's not like, oh, I'm annoyed because the waiter, brought my food cold. It's like, serious, real stuff. And it's really hard to totally understand and truly, truly to believe for me or feel it that control of my reaction to this when I fundamentally think this is a really terrible, vibration in the world. And so this is something I really have to intentionally work on because there's a little teeny part of me that has a hard time really believing it, even if intellectually I totally believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And how does that work when, you trust somebody and you lend them money? They're in a bad situation, and you give them $400 so that they get back on their feet. And they're like going to take care of you and get you back. And they know it's important, and it never happens. And you ask them every week for a month, and they never take care of it. And pretty soon, they are nowhere to be found. And when you do see them, it's like they forgot about it. Oh yeah. you know, and you get pissed off. It's like, damn, you know, I was good. I went out of my way. I went out on a limb. I helped you out. And now what? You're going to burn me? So, you know, what do? I break their legs. I just forget about it. How do you work that out?
Well,
Yeah. Never lend them money again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you never lend that.
The best $400 you spent, Dean. Now you know.
Don't go breaking
Oh,
legs.
bingo.
$100 I spent.
They call me up.
Dean, I
Great
told
night.
you I would get it back to you. I told you I'd get it back.
How
Call
quick-
them off, yeah.
Get 9 more fingers. You know, you don't need this one.
how
That's a,
quickly?
but that's a great thing you brought up, Sylvia. The
I'll
difference
give it
between
back,
the intellectual and then that emotional. Do you ever go back and reflect on that? Do you ever, what do
Yeah,
you?
and I sort of, I can come up with intellectual solutions,
Yes, so,
like
yeah,
I have to
yeah.
have compassion for the fact that this person, you know, has pain and this is how they're expressing it, and each person has to evolve in their own time and blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
You know, I can intellectualize
Okay.
it, but in the moment, particularly if somebody's hurting children or there
Oh
are,
my God,
it's,
yes.
you know, I'm on a spectrum where I'm finding it easier to, you know, some people that used to annoy me no longer do. I've released
Yeah.
that and I've learned to
Yeah.
get over it. But when the
Yeah.
challenges are really, you know, I get to a point where I'm like, yeah, this is beyond my ability right now to,
Yeah.
to you know, feel peace and joy and love and sadness in this moment. I do feel annoyed and frustrated and angry, and you know, and I know that it's my responsibility, but it doesn't totally feel like I have control over that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think last time we were on the call, we mentioned it was something around this and forgiveness too, like forgiving people for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
In the book on page 144, he talks about, so the second paragraph there, he goes, why would an entity take the negative route? Because they are short-sighted and they do not understand the picture.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? So that helps too. And yes, it's an
Mhm.
intellectual concept, but it's understanding like everybody's doing the best they can with where they're at, and where they're at right now is that they have no understanding of the big picture. They feel like they are this avatar trapped in this physical world, and that this is so understanding that helps to give compassion. And then we also mentioned a movie last time. I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch it. It's called The Shack. It's on,
Yeah. Read the book. Yeah.
I read the book. Yeah.
yeah. So that talks about like the ultimate form of forgiveness, right? Forgiving somebody who's murdered your child. Like,
Yeah.
have that. So I like just how it puts it in perspective there. Illustrates it.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Vanessa. That's right where I was thinking, is that I recall we're supposed to, in these kind of situations, I believe Tom has said, or others have said, you know, kind of what you said, or the same thing, different words maybe. You think about them and their actions and your frustration or whatever, and realize or see that they're doing perhaps the best they can with the tools they have, based on, you know, where they've evolved to at that point.
Yeah, it helps to have compassion for sure. I just want to keep us back on track. So where are we? We're 135 now.
Yeah.
Wait, Bojana wanted to say something. Did
Oh,
we
sorry,
Bojana?
Say that, you know, when you're talking about being frustrated in certain situations, that how quickly we get over it and realize that we can only have compassion for that person that affected our well-being, good positive state of mind.
Yeah, say that again.
Or the measurement of our quality of our consciousness.
Yeah,
Yeah, can you say that one more time?
that makes a lot of sense.
It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, Tom said it like numerous times, that the quality of your consciousness is reflected how quickly you can bring it from
Yes. Yeah.
the way you're being affected by the situation to understanding that this is just the way it is, and you can offer only compassion and love to whomever agitated or made you mad or angry at that time.
Oh, it was really good. It was really good. The first thing you said when you started talking was spot on, but I missed a couple of the words.
Vanessa, can you put it in your own words better?
Oh,
Can you just repeat what you said, Hosanna?
Yeah, he liked what you said. He just didn't hear it all.
Yeah, it's really. Can you just repeat the first part of what you said?
Like the quality of our consciousness is reflective. Is reflected in how quickly you can
Have compassion for him.
from that
Mhm.
that you are
Yeah.
agitated in your mind, bring it down to your heart and understand that this is just the way it is, and this is only actually a mental construct. What is happening? It's virtual. Nobody's really, a person is really not suffering. This is just the learning lab where,
Right.
it's preschool or whatever, elementary school of understanding
For
the
sure.
reality, from looking at it from the bigger picture.
Yeah. We call that, or a friend of ours mentioned that that's like your emotional fitness, right? It's like how quick is your refractory period from when you get agitated to then being like, okay, I need to come from love. Is it a whole day that you're frustrated, or is it just like maybe 10 minutes, or maybe it's a minute later you're like, okay, come back to love. So the quicker you're able to come back to love is a measure of your emotional fitness.
Yes. Yes.
And I think also the other thing that, I try and look at is that this is all data. So if I get reactive and I stay reactive for 2 weeks, what is the nature and quality of that interaction that has done it? And why in this other situation that someone else might react to, I'm able to be loving and kind. And so you start to then, figure out, like, I've realized that my hot button is if someone has enough food and a fairly good education, I'm much harder on them than if they don't. And people that I feel like they should know better. And that is and so I realized that I have some sort of, maybe it's a snobbery around, if you're kind of, or maybe it's, compassion for people that don't have or something, but there's something about, if you've had a reasonable level of education and you're reasonably safe and secure in your life, I guess I feel like those things are pressures. And so I kind of understand people succumbing to pressures. But whatever, the details are don't really matter. It's just doing the analysis on yourself as to understanding what are my triggers and why. What are the underlying beliefs, assumptions that I'm attached to that I need to unwind as a way to grow and learn.
That's what I meant by when you go back and look at it. And you've answered that by how you do that. I go back and I look at it. And I love that idea of the refractory period. It's really helped me. Like Sylvia, like something happens and how quick am I to go, oh man, what was I doing there? And it's a good way to look at hot buttons and belief systems. I really like that. Thank you, Bozana, for that. And thank you for Vanessa putting it in those terms. And thank you, Sylvia, for the example.
Hey, man, we're on the team. Teamwork makes the dream work, man.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Right on. So over on 135, I like the very first sentence there where he says that PMR is when the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
Your actions and feelings reflect the actual you, not what you think you are or want to be. And then further on in that paragraph, he talks about it would be better to give it limited awareness and functionality so it won't be continually getting stuck in intellectual endless loops, thinking about interactions instead of experiencing them. And he's talking about other reality frames that were created, right? Where it was just stuck in intellectual endless loops. But I'm looking at that even here. So when I heard that line, thinking about interactions instead of experience, it motivates me to actually take action. Because sometimes I'll have an idea and I'll be thinking about it, but I'm like, I need to just do it. I need to just take action so I can see what the results are rather than thinking about it. And I think what enables me to do that is getting rid of the fear so I can take action. Yeah, I might fall on my face, but I'll learn and maybe I'll fly. Who knows? You'll never know until I just go out there and take the action, right?
Just do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share something about that, and you guys can help me, is that I've been putting together this podcast on exploring consciousness since January. And I've got it written out and storyboard it. And the other day I realized I'm not doing it because I think I have a fear about putting myself out in that kind of an arena. So you're right, Vanessa. I've been doing all the intellectual stuff, and I haven't done it in the sense of I haven't recorded my first podcast for that reason. Thank you. That just brought it to mind. Like, yeah, I think I'm afraid. Yeah, that's it.
Wow. For fear. And then our intellect gets in the way and justifies fear. And it's like, well, it's not time yet.
Not time. I got to do some more research on what microphone. Yeah, no. Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Good anyway.
Yeah. Wow, is that so true? Wow, I'm going to put that down right here. Podcast beer.
So Donna, when are you going to do the podcast?
Yeah, putting the deadlines really works. Huh?
You guys hold me to that because I
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're going to hold you accountable. So that's why I'm asking when you're going to do it.
What's a good date to hold me to?
You
I'm
tell
thinking
us.
Oh,
December.
okay.
What do you think about that? And notice I didn't say what year. I'm saying
December 2022. Yeah.
Do you have all the information that you feel you need to conduct your podcast?
for me.
Do you have all the information that you feel you need?
Oh yeah, I've lesson planned it. Yeah.
You have all the materials, all the tools, all the technology, the microphones and everything?
Yeah, that's my new podcast microphone.
Sounds like you've got everything you need to move forward then. So maybe 48 hours.
Whoa!
So I think the answer needs to come from Donna, not from us.
You know,
Okay.
get good and drunk tonight if you have to.
Okay, you guys, this is Donna.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay, so back to the book. We got anything else on 135? No, he's really just talking about different reality frames, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
136.
Okay, this is where I had questions. So, like the first paragraph starting with interference,
Mhm.
and then, you know, basically that's that one paragraph and the next two. I didn't quite know what he was saying. Can anybody help me?
Yeah, I interpreted that as he's not, because you're in this rule set. There are rules here in this virtual reality, and you have to, anything that is outside of this rule set is not allowed, right? So you can't have other entities interfering with this experiment because the rule set doesn't allow that to happen. What I like here is he says, okay, so he goes, one peripheral and probably unintended consequence of this important rule enables the consciousness. So the rule is just that whole paragraph. The interference in PMR from outside of PMR by direct action is generally forbidden. All exceptions must obey the science only principle, which is thoroughly addressed later. On the other hand, indirect influence is, under certain conditions, not only allowed, but encouraged. Okay, so one peripheral and probably unintended consequence of this important rule enables the consciousness-limited embodied citizens of the PMRs that are operationally aware in NPMR to take direct actions in NPMR without the liability that would accrue to a less limited NPMR being who is not under the protection of PMR citizens.
Okay, stop. Explain that, please.
Well, it's funny because Daniel and I think Virginia could have been there too. We had this conversation with Tom when he was here, I think last year, in that we were kind of like, well, you know, why are you here, like in this reality? And he's like, well, one thing, it's for protection. And we were like, protection because you're under a certain law or you're under certain rules where you can't be interfered with. Other entities can't mess with you because you're here in this rule set. So
Right.
that's the protection that he's talking about there. And so then he goes, as greater numbers of entities embodied within physical realities become operational and active in non-physical, this loophole will probably get plugged. So basically, like entities such as Tom won't be able to come here, incarnate here as protection and help us out. So then,
Really?
Okay.
The way that I interpreted that paragraph is that you oftentimes say, well, why doesn't God intervene when the little child is being raped?
Mm.
And that's exactly what's happening here. That's the way I interpret it, is that, like, look, we're in a set of rules that if some outside direct force was to intervene into the quality of consciousness of us as a whole, that would set in motion different things. But what's encouraged is people's, or us as physical beings here, and it says not only allowed but encouraged, is this indirect influence over actions, which is our free will. That's how I interpreted it. So I'm not sure if I'm off base.
Yeah, no,
Any
that's
Helps.
But that's a good way to just to say, well, any entities, how about God? God, angels, spirits, ET.
I
Can't,
interpret the indirect as just like our guides, right? Communicating.
yes, indirect, yes.
You can't like
But they
materialize.
can't show up. They can't come to your door, ring the doorbell and go, you know, you really are messing up here. You need to do that.
I had
okay.
to,
So is this trying to say, like, you know, like good and there's not like some angel that could come and revive you from the dead, for example, but there's also not some like devil that could come and murder you because they don't have physical reality.
Right.
That's what it's trying to say.
Yeah, like in the paragraph below, it goes, in the meantime, the embodied citizen of PMR, us,
Us.
who has a well-developed consciousness and operationally aware in NPMR, which is our intent to be, has a powerful advantage in that he or she can forcefully interact with the energy of others, PK, both within and outside the PMR, and remain within the law and thus protected by it. We are allowed to meddle in the energy of others because such activity exercises an important part of evolution of potential, because our consciousness is generally so underdeveloped that we can't do much damage. It's like a little bunch of toddlers throwing Nerf balls at each other. And that's where we're saying, like, look, we're just specks in this consciousness. We're, you know, our little reality is minuscule in terms of what's happening. And so that, I don't know. Am I off? Am I off base?
Yeah, but and then when he talks about you can forcefully interact with others here because you're embodied. So I can go and I can push you. That's me forcefully interacting there. But if you're not embodied and you're an entity trying to interfere, like you can't really do much, right? You can go and maybe plant some thoughts in somebody's mind. But
Yeah.
Right.
I had an interesting occurrence or happening this earlier this week where I was meditating and I heard a voice or something telling me about all I heard was car accident.
Oh no.
And while I was driving on the highway, there was a car that almost swerved right into me. But I think that may have allowed me to create the awareness to be more alert on the highway. And I avoided him. I think he missed me by about a foot.
Wow.
yeah,
Right? And I was driving like 80, 90 kilometers an hour. It was pretty fast. But I thought, if this message didn't come to me, maybe I would have been in an accident.
Right.
Yeah,
Because you had that message, you were kind of like driving a little.
I was more alert. I'm more aware of what was around me.
I got you.
So Daniel, to echo that, as on the same page, it goes right at the bottom. It goes, the motivational dynamics of consciousness are our motivational dynamics as well, because we are consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, obviously, tongue in cheek, could anything be more simple or straightforward, right?
Right.
So it's exactly what you were saying, and from what I'm interpreting is right.
Yeah.
This awareness became you, and as a result, you're like, okay, maybe what Sylvia was talking about, let's table that, because maybe I'm not supposed to understand that right now. But then half an hour later, you understood this.
Yeah.
And you brought it back off the table.
Exactly.
Well, you stayed hyper vigilant on the highway because you heard the term car accident. So that was pretty direct stuff. You know, that was very specific. It wasn't just like danger. It was car accident.
Yeah, I thought, what does this mean? I was afraid of driving that, when I heard that message.
Yeah, so you're hyper vigilant, and you're on the highway. You had that little faster reaction time.
Yeah. And then when I saw the car swerve to me, it seemed like everything slowed right down.
Yeah.
So everything happening in front of me.
Very cool.
Really weird.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, so Sylvia, I think they're talking about how we interact with the non-physical, how they can interact with us, and those kinds of interactions. Because I've had, anyways, yeah, I've had experiences where
Yeah.
they've just about seen them.
Yeah.
And you still had the free will to choose if that's what you wanted, the path that you wanted to go. It wasn't someone grabbing your head and turning you and say, walk down this path. You were still able to reflect and say, okay, this is how I need to be. And
Now,
that
this was a direct contact, like Sylvia would say, that you would put in the good realm of saving my life on more than one occasion.
Yeah, and I think these things, these are always, well, these are encouraged, right? These are
Yeah, so they've done that. They've actually physically saved me, I know, at least 3 times.
Mhm.
One was my boating accident.
Right.
I was dead. So.
But the sentence when we started reading this paragraph, it said, and it does qualify that. It goes, direct action is generally forbidden. It's not absolutely.
It's not, exactly.
And this
So
was
there is this.
not direct action anyway. None of this is direct action. It's just
Yes, exactly. Direct action would be like an NPC, right? Showing up, and that's generally
Right, not showing, yeah.
it
and
actually,
you hear about NPC stories too, right? So,
Yeah.
I had one.
I had one. I had 2.
What's an NPC?
A non-player character. So somebody who's played by the larger consciousness system, a character that materializes in this reality and is not an actual avatar that has an IUOC. But it just comes to give you a message. So
Wait, non-player what?
non-player character.
Character.
it's a
That's
Dungeons
what I
and
think.
Dragons.
They
Yeah.
actually showed up and did something.
Yeah.
Absolutely did.
In other religions, they call them angels, right? Like angels
Right. Okay.
come to help. But Tom calls them NPCs. But when he's talking about here in that paragraph, Sylvia, that you're looking at, where he says, you know, as greater numbers of entities embodied within physical realities, as they become operational and active in non-physical, then this loophole will probably be plugged. Because right now, like Tom always talks about, you need to grow up so that you become one with the larger consciousness system, where he's also rephrased it as you become part of the lab staff, right? And he is part of the lab staff. Like I've asked him, and he's like, yeah, I guess I am. But
Part of the what?
part
Lab
of the lab staff.
Lab staff?
Yeah,
One of the lab staff. He's here to help us.
staff.
Yeah.
Lab staff.
We're all lab rats.
Yeah,
He's the staff, we're the rats.
So we've graduated if that's the case, right?
Exact, Daniel.
He's the staff. He has the white coat. We're in the maze.
You got it.
So he's got he's operational in NPMR, and he talks about too. He's said before, like most of his work is not here. Most of his work is in NPMR. This is just his little COVID. Like he's got protection here, right? But then he mentions here in this book but once this loophole, I mean, once there's more and more entities like him, then this loophole will be plugged. So we won't have people like
Be
him.
able to have that protection. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But the purpose of that would be because we as an entire whole, our consciousness would have been involved. We wouldn't require the lab staff in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go from kindergarten to pre.
I'm just trying to get to grade 1, Daniel.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So let's move forward here because I know our time is, we got
Are we
about
doing, oops, no. Oh, dang it.
137. I just liked in the middle there, the last sentence of the aside. He's
Yeah.
talking about these type of like these paranormal abilities, and he says if you're interested, you should begin to develop the ability to access this information and experience NPMR yourself. It's not as difficult as you might think.
Yeah, Tom, yeah.
Thought I'd just
we make it difficult.
We make it difficult, and we give up so easily too, right? Like we don't put in the time and effort that's required.
So I need to qualify something. I actually stopped highlighting because I just realized that everything was just completely relevant. So I actually have read all of this. It's not coming back to me because I read it 2 weeks ago.
So you should highlight the stuff that's not relevant.
Yeah. The inverse relationship.
Oh, the student is now the teacher.
I like what he was talking about in the connection between Om and love is less about what Om does and feels or how Om acts than it is about Om being. And obviously,
Low entropy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like
And,
that too.
I like
Bottom
that.
and that love is an attribute of Om's existence.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So when I'm experimenting to access the information, so I ask for help and guidance from highly evolved, low entropy consciousness that could guide and help me in the non-NPR.
Okay.
I ask that a lot.
Yeah, I ask that every morning when I pray.
See, I mean,
Yeah. And I come from a very strong religious background.
Yeah.
So combining, and one of the things I realize is that, I don't need to go to church to be religious.
Mhm.
Why can't I walk with God? Right.
Oh, you
And
do.
so,
You absolutely do. Yeah.
and then having this type of information really expanding your horizon and understanding that relationship. And this is a really one of those chapters where I'm like, okay, this is starting to tie in a lot of questions I didn't realize I had, but we're bringing them up to light in terms of, what about God? What role does it play? And why are individuals such as my mom so religious? And why are they leaning upon religion so hard? Obviously, that's a question for her to ask, but it's starting to help me understand more about myself and why. Daniel, every morning I pray that, hey man, I can just protect me as I'm driving to work. And oftentimes I've been backing out of a parking lot, and I just, for whatever reason, I just pressed on my brake, and boom, sure enough, a van just went by. It happened last week, and I'm like, what if I didn't pray right before I left? What would have happened? I don't know. But the fact is I do pray.
Yeah.
And so I attribute that to obviously what we're talking about here, and this NPMR being, a non-physical reality where it's allowing you to evolve greater in this PMR.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next page, 138.
Alrighty.
I like the middle of I like the middle part where he goes, if you can arrange for your failures to automatically disappear without a trace, while your successes persist forever, you will eventually end up looking incredibly brilliant, even if you're a random plodder. The products of evolution appear to be incredibly clever, but I'm not impressed. The fundamental process has been working a long, long time, and I'm hip to its slick trick of conveniently hiding its many mistakes. And we're talking about evolution.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about.
It only invests in its winners.
It only does.
Yeah. Or it only shows its winners because the losers have fallen by the wayside.
And we visited that in the previous chapters when we started exploring NPMR to the N+1, N+2, and what those different NPMRs were, and then how those reality constructs weren't able to support what Om needed. And because of the evolution of that consciousness, it fell by the wayside because it wasn't able to support what we're doing in this Petri dish.
And again, by only investing in the winning choices, it encourages me to continue to make choices and take action, because that way I know what not to invest in. We were looking at a business idea, and we were saying, let's just do it, because even if it doesn't work, at least we can take it off the table and now focus on something else, right? But we need to just get it out there to see if it's viable. So, yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, if you've given it its due diligence and done your analyzation and compared against your other thoughts or ideas, if you have multiple businesses, then yeah, get to a point you gotta just do it, right?
Got it.
I hear you. Got a few of those cooking myself.
Nice. Anything else on this page? I guess the second to last paragraph where he says, we're not independent of Om. Think of Om as a loving, dispassionate, impartial, unbiased, independent scientist, engineer, philosopher. Good and valid science is done dispassionately. Yeah.
I remember when I came on board on the first time that I came into the book club, guys, and I asked you guys to explain what is, and we started doing the puppet thing and the little
The bed sheets.
all of this, and then so then to understand what we're talking about now is just great. I'm just grateful for you guys' patience with me, helping me understand what this thing is.
You're evolving.
I'm skeptical.
Are you open? Are you an open skeptic?
Think nothing of it, kid. You're doing all right.
Thank you, brothers. Brothers and sisters.
Bump up the volume.
All right. Let's go to 139. Anything there?
Yeah, I like right at the top paragraph, it says, think of as an evolving consciousness system being thing. And that's what I meant by just what my earlier comment for everyone is and helping me understand what was. He goes, with this emphasis on this word thing, instead of an old guy with a long white beard, bushy eyebrows, and a white robe. Does that sound like an all power of a version of us who promises to save us and defeat our enemies if we could have worshipped him to return? So again, it's just allowing me to kind of draw this, and he goes, earlier in the previous page, he goes, let go of this anthropomorphic. Say it, babe. There you go. Right? And this is my natural tendency to do it because I'm trying to draw a relationship to something that is new.
Yeah.
And because of your background, as you know, I've got a Catholic background, but it's also sort of patterned into you early too, the white guy with the beard. So that feels comfortable when you're in this space. I think we got to get Tom a white robe, by the way.
Yeah.
When I first met him, I was like, oh man, he looks like God. If God was a man, he would look like.
He looks like skinny Santa.
I thought he'd be Santa. He'd be a good Santa.
Yeah.
Like Morgan Freeman and Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
That's funny. Yeah, it's
You
just
guys, I have to start going, so I don't. Are you gonna finish 9? I gotta go.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm
We got
sorry.
15. That's okay. You have to leave in 15 minutes, or
Like a minute ago.
oh, you gotta go. Okay. We're probably gonna wrap it up in 15
Okay.
minutes. So if you wanna say like your final comment,
I love you guys.
we love you.
Hey, Donna.
That's
Right,
some
yes.
smooth.
All right. Love you.
Love you, ciao.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so 139.
And so this is going back to what we're talking about religion, and it is really kind of captivates it because it really talks about why God. So you ever wonder why all gods of men seem to have some strong want, need, expectation, desire to be worshipped? And then jump right to the next paragraph. It goes, the fact is, unconditional love, compassion, and humility can have no requirement, no ego, no need, no desire, no expectations. Consequently, don't confuse with a big T with any god of the human tribe. Their nature as egoless manifestations of unconditional love disqualifies them for the job. So right away, it takes this religious aspect and say, hey, we're not talking about religion here. We're talking about something of a different order. And it really kind of separates a little bit of confusion that I have when I was reading the chapter previous to this, really indicating that you're right. Is not asking me to pay my tithing. Is not saying you got to go to church to be a good person. What is saying is just come from from no ego. Don't have any needs, desires, expectations. Come from unconditional love. And by coming from unconditional love, it disqualifies, them from being placed in that same conversation of, is this a god or not?
Right.
Yeah, just wants you to evolve because if you evolve, then you're helping everything evolve. And that's so it's kind of like dispassionate. It's like, we're rats in the maze. If we're rats that figure it out, excellent. If not, that's part of the experiment. Like it's not personal.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be in a way. I think that's for me as a religious person, that's the hook I've got to unhook because God loves me. is, you know, is kind of a big part of religion. But with this, it's saying, doesn't have that sort of aspect. Just is looking to evolve, and by you evolving, evolves. If you fall by the wayside, well, that's okay too. That's like the business, it didn't work, you know?
It's all part of growing up, right?
Yeah, so it's not personal. Yeah.
For me, it helped me to realize that I am part of God. So I'm just a reflection of the qualities of the
Yeah, like, and this is when you talk about different religious, when you talk about different religion, and you hear often say, well, you're not that religion, well, you're not going to make it to heaven. Well, like, that's crazy. Or like, whatever your picture of heaven would be. But, you know, talking about information that I tabled as a child, and now it's bringing back into this conversation 30 years ago, where I'm saying, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just going to table that. And now 30 years later, I brought it back into it. Okay, well, this makes sense now when we're talking about unconditional love, what would represent, versus what different religious would say, well, if you're not Muslim, then you're not going to be XYZ, or if you're not a Christian, or you're not a Catholic. And it really kind of draws this.
I lost you guys.
Yeah, I like that. So
everybody's frozen.
Oh, you're frozen, Bojana.
You look good frozen, Bojana.
Yeah, you do. You pose. Don't worry, I know sometimes. Can you hear us still, Bojana?
Oh, I think we lost her.
Internet connection. Yeah, she might have to log back in. Oh, here she comes. Okay, there you go. You're back. So on page 140 in the middle there, it talks about what we're saying. So the second paragraph after the aside, where he says, I'm sure that wants the good guys to win, but it must let the chips fall where they may. This is not cruel or inconsistent with being the embodiment of love. Does not have a mean thought bone in its thought mind body. Because doesn't cuddle you and sing lullabies, make you feel special, superior, valued, all steer up to the ego. This doesn't mean that it's an indifferent, heartless mind shark that doesn't care what happens. Is giving you an opportunity to evolve your consciousness via the intentional dissolution of your ego. Surely you understand that puffing up your ego by giving you special consideration would be terribly counterproductive.
But I also like what says right after. He goes, and a good scientist can care very deeply and profoundly about what happens, but still must conduct honest experiments. Cannot trick evolution. Profitability is assessed by results, not good intentions, brilliant theory, or preferred outcomes. What a very powerful statement, just to summarize, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And regardless of if you fall by the wayside, or it doesn't work out, or any of the negative connotations that we're talking about are part of the evolutionary process of falling off, not being one of the winners, it doesn't matter, right? Because everything is connected. Is everything. We are all part of.
Right.
The ocean is the drop, and the drop is the ocean. And eventually, everybody's going to get there. It may take, this character 10 more lifetimes because they're pretty thick-headed, but eventually they're going to figure that out. And if we are more supportive through compassion, patience, love, I don't know, maybe breaking an extra finger sometimes.
Frozen again.
Right? You're going to get there one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it my internet or your guys' internet?
It's yours, babe.
I was lost. I got lost too, so I don't know what's going on.
It's probably my internet.
No, we're on page 141 now, guys.
Okay.
So 141, we got 8 minutes. Anything stand out on that page?
I like the middle part. It says disease has its function. It gives as well as takes. Free will choices. Free will choice must include the ability to choose badly. Though an individual consciousness can lower its entropy through growth in the negative direction, negative growth because of natural limitations is a poor long-term investment. A fatal cancer without meaning to always ends up killing itself, and as it kills the host. The cancer is not aware of its activity in self-destructive because it is trapped in the little picture with no vision into the larger system. The host, on the other hand, living within and being a part of the bigger picture, must take care not to encourage the cancer or let the cancer get a foothold. It goes on and on, but I won't read the rest.
Yeah, I love that too, Danny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That echoes what Bojana was saying many chapters ago about how she really enjoyed that analogy of the Petri dish and how we're just little experiments in this Petri dish. And then what we do is connected to, you know, a haircut or the fundamental process, that whole conversation. And that's really what came up for me when I was reading that as well.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have this memory.
So what about, let's move on to 142. Anything on there?
42.
This is where I officially stopped reading.
Oh, the very last sentence in this page, where he says, additionally, NPMR beings are assigned to help you in everything under the law. Yeah, yay!
Yeah.
These beings are focused directly on you to plan, encourage, and guide your spiritual growth, the growth of the quality of your consciousness.
When I read that, I was thinking of the hearing that voice.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
And so see, when he talks about how is like dispassionate and he doesn't say it's indifferent. He says like he cares about the experiment, but not so much kind of what happens to you.
Yeah.
And I've been like, well, there's so often I feel incredibly loved by what I thought was God or or whatever you want to call it, larger consciousness system. But I like here how he's saying, you know, there are beings that are assigned to you. And so now I understand, oh, that love is probably coming from my guides, from my beings who are here, who are helping to guide me in the right direction. That's probably the love that I'm feeling. And when you look at it, those guides are you know, because they're just pieces of just as we're pieces of
Exactly. Right.
I always wonder, when I feel that love, I always wonder, you know, is it my guides? Or is it me tapping into like the oneness of everything? Or is it me becoming love, even if it's just briefly? Like, do you feel it, Vanessa, that it's coming? Because I think probably all are possible, but I can't discern a qualitative difference. Do you feel like it's coming from outside of you? Do you feel like you do? That's
it feels like you're right. It feels like tuning into something much bigger than myself. That's what it feels like. So connecting to the oneness of everything, right?
When are you feeling this? Any particular?
Meditation often, if I need. It's kind of like a reboot, a recharge. You know, I'll just go into meditation and get the silent, and then it comes, and then I'm like, oh, I just feel loved. I feel cared for.
Yeah, that's how I feel it too. Meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And so Tom has talked about often people will just live there. They'll just get there and then they'll stop. But he's like, that's the launching pad. He's like, there's so much more to explore. You don't just stop there.
Right.
That's where you start. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I tell my students, people that I work with, the place of power is the quiet mind. That's the place that you can step forward with all kinds of neat magic tricks like out-of-body experience or remote viewing or all kinds of different stuff. It's that quiet mind. Having the void, letting go of the thoughts as they come in. What's the bills and all this? You got to get the mind to just settle down and tune in, like you were saying, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Meditation place. That's the place of power. All kinds of goodies can happen from there.
Yeah. So on that page 143, so I guess it's the third paragraph from the bottom. It starts balance, humility, compassion, joy, peace, sadness, love, and caring, as well as the desire to evolve, learn, and grow, are all the natural attributes of highly evolved and aware consciousness. We are an individuated part of the larger consciousness system that has been constrained to go through the same evolutionary process as the whole. The value of knowing and understanding the origins and processes of your existence, as well as being aware of the available options and pitfalls that lie before you, is obvious. Knowing what you are doing and why you're doing it should contribute immensely to your ability to get the job done. So it's basically, if you're here, like we talked about earlier, if you're here and you have no clue why you're here, you're just here to have fun or just to, I don't know, just you don't know why you're here, which is the way that I lived for so long. It's like, why am I here? Why am I here? I don't know. I guess I'm just supposed to have fun. But then once you finally get it, and you understand, oh, I'm part of something bigger than myself. I'm part of this larger consciousness system, and our whole point is to evolve and grow up. then that helps you to expedite your whole evolution, because now you have kind of like a rule book. Whereas before there was no instructions. You're just kind of lost. It's like if somebody like put you on a soccer field and was like, hey, go play soccer, but you had no concept of what soccer was. You would just stumble around there. But if somebody's like, these are the rules, this is what you do, then you go and you play and you have fun. So I look at my big toe as kind of like a map or a rule book or a guide that's helping us think, here it is. It's not a recipe saying do this, this, and this, but it's saying here's an outline, and now you fill it out with your own personal style that works for you. But the whole purpose is to grow up and become love and find out how to do that in your best way.
Right.
So for me, yeah, that helps so much, that now I know what I came here to do, and now I can get the job done because I know that.
Right. You've got something to shoot for, a goal.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the bigger goal, as he states in the one before last paragraph, is as our individual consciousness evolves, we contribute to the quality of the entire consciousness system of which you are a part.
Mm-hmm.
So I think knowing this, like really, it's a huge motivator for me.
Yeah.
Doing this just for myself.
Yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Sylvia. Or
Sylvia.
Sorry. So I was just saying I'm going to pop off super quickly on my really tight time scale for ending. So lots of love to everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
okay, guys, we are at 12 o'clock. So is there anything else in the book that stands out before we do the closing circle?
No?
I can continue on the sentence that I just read. And it's 2 pages down. What we do with the opportunity to evolve our consciousness is entirely up to us. It is our free will, our self-interaction, and our interaction with others that creates the possibility of learning, which in turn creates our potential for growth. So, I like how, even all those opportunities to interact with others, even though there might be, unpleasant at times, they give us the opportunity to grow and contribute to the larger consciousness system.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, baby. Got to mix it up sometimes, huh? It makes for a more interesting stew.
Absolutely.
Got it.
The saying that it's always good. It's either good or it's a lesson.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with a mistake if you learn from it, right?
Opportunities.
So yeah, I didn't read the last 3 pages, but now I'm just jumping.
It's amazing how we're all on the same page.
I'm just jumping to the last page, the last chapter, because I'm guessing there's going to be some good nuggets in there. He usually wraps up each chapter with a something meaningful. So the last paragraph, he's talking about like, how do you help people, right? What do you do to help? And he says, just love them and let them be. They will eventually figure it out. Explaining it to them often ends up confusing them more. So just love them and let them be, and evolve your consciousness to the greatest extent possible. That way, if asked, you can point out unseen opportunities and options from a more balanced and less ego-driven perspective. Serve as a good example and provide encouragement through living proof that success is possible. That is about all you can do to help. So by example, right? Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Why don't we close out with a sharing circle? So, Bojana, you want to start? Final thoughts?
Sure. Well, just as usual, thank you very much for contributing to my understanding of this difficult, somewhat chapter a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean? How about you, Dean?
Thanks for your patience with me, everyone. And I've been absent lately and just been kind of chaotic over here. Even this morning, it's still a little crazy. But it's really good to hear everybody's perception and viewpoints on different items here. You know, I always get something, and I appreciate it. It's good to hang out with some like-minded folks, and we're all trying and moving forward.
Yeah.
Glad to be part of the group.
Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for continually guiding. I'm not adverse to being open to learning, and I'll be the first one to say that I have no idea. But yeah, thanks for the encouraging words that possibly I am evolving. The proof,
Sure.
the proof is always in the pudding, though.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. This is great. I love how we're committed to doing this every week. Oh, and we need to figure out when we're going to meet again. And now everybody's gone. So what works for you guys? Does this time normally work? Sundays at 10:30?
This is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is good for me. It's great. So much better than you.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe do it a little bit earlier, just in case we have a beautiful day and we would like to, you know, move on with the day.
I was thinking a little bit later, more like
Later.
Okay. Next Sunday. Okay, well, I'll just put a message out to the group.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Thank you guys. This was great.
Thank you. Love you all.
Love you
Good
all.
evening. Bye, Bojana.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.